first start. I threw 5 picks. We got shut out. I was balling after the game. So it's an amazing way to go out against a team like that. The caliber, like, they played really good tonight, but we came out on top. Definitely the best game I've ever been a part of, and definitely probably the best high school game I've ever watched. So yeah, it was amazing.
The fumble was just, it was crazy. I mean, it's Halloween weekend, right? You would have thought a black cat ran across the field or something like that, right? And then he hits 2, and I'm just like, man, this kid, these Jean-Pierres won't go away, right?
Number 6, the quarterback, I saw his eyes locked in with number 5. So I knew he was going to throw it, and that's what he exactly did. So I jumped. I reacted and jumped on it. It was exhilarating. I didn't even know I could jump that high.
It's the same thing I told Bennett, the same thing I told his boys. I went over there and congratulated them. But this is just hold for now. I'll see you in a little bit. It's not goodbye. It's just I'll see you later.
Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the Meat Grinder, your weekly dose of high school football in Connecticut. And happy Halloween! It was Thriller night at Pierson Park in Cromwell. At the top of the show where you heard the Panthers. They are still heavyweight and still undisputed after a ridiculously great game, 28-27 over rival Valley Regional Old Lyme on senior night. Just an amazing game. You heard a little bit from Cromwell, Portland. Cole Brisson, the field general, the quarterback. Brisson hearkening back to his days as a freshman quarterback, getting his first start and getting picked off 5 times. Finally, sweet redemption as a senior, going out, coming full circle with a big win on senior night. You also heard from the hero, senior back Johnny Beltre, who was left all alone on an island in the end zone, yet made the play of the year, batting away Jean-Pierre's 2-point pass to seal the victory. He just looked at his eyes and saw what he was going to do. Batted it away, just an amazing job by him. And then, of course, you heard a little bit from Randell Bennett, the Cromwell Port, and this week's special guest star on the big victory that kept the Panthers unbeaten. And then finally, you heard from Valley coach Hill Bundley saying goodbye, farewell, but not for long. Ain't that the truth, Pete, in this 6th Division State playoff mess? But an eventful week. I saw a great game. You saw some pretty good games. Just lots to talk about on this week. We're going into week 9. Oh, my goodness, of high school.
Crazy. I can't believe we're at week 9. It makes no sense. How did we get here so quickly?
It happens every year, man.
I know. It happens like clockwork. Yeah. Wild.
What can I say about this Valley Regional O-line? We're going to talk all about it with Randell Bennett, but it was probably one of the most entertaining games I'd seen all year. The most entertaining game I've seen. It kind of had a little bit of everything. The stars were all out at Pierson Park, Pete. You had Lori Riley from the Hartford Current. You had Mike DeMorrow from the Day of New London. You had Paul Agieri, our guy, doing the story for us. And then, it just lived up to basically the hype of the game. Everyone did stories on it leading into it. Valley Regional goes up big to start the game. D'Angelo Jean-Pierre, we did a story on him. An electric punt return that kind of staked them out to a 21-7 lead. And then in the second half, Cromwell Portland with 2 onside kicks recoveries back-to-back. Sure enough, they recovered both of those, and they held the ball, Pete, for all but 3 minutes in the second half.
Who are they, North Haven?
It was amazing. It was that type of offense. Like we said, Brisson just the amount of concentration and patience you have to do, and then to convert all those third downs. I don't know what the final number ended up being, but it was a ridiculous amount. And the only thing that kind of stopped them was just the fumble. They just had the ball for so long. Eventually, something's going to happen. It's too good a team. And sure enough, D'Angelo Jean-Pierre on cue just zip down the field. Jacob Rand, and it's 28-27, and everyone's just stunned. That's Mike Cromwell held the ball this long, and sure did Johnny Beltre with the play of the game in the end zone. And hey, listen, Cromwell Portland has now won. Geez, how many games in a row now? It's 13. That's 20 games in a row. since including a Class S championship. Just an amazing job by Randell Bennett and his staff. And listen, Valley, like Coach Bunley said, they could see each other again in that Class AA playoff spot. So just a great game on Friday night. Certainly I've seen.
I believe it's 21 in a row.
21 now. I don't want something
because they won their final game of the year in 2019.
Did they?
Yep.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
Brisson's freshman year, which he alluded to in the interview. I believe, yes, I'm correct. They beat Rocky Hill 20-14 to finish that season. Then they went 13-0 last year, and they're 7-0 now.
Well, again, they're one of the top programs, small school programs, or small schools programs, I should say, in the state, and certainly a contender in Class SS. I mean, we saw over across the way, Barlow getting beat, but against Newtown, so they're still really good. And then obviously Wyndham is in there as well. So that'll be really interesting to see where this goes and see how Valley responds to this. But Pete, let's just jump right into the top 10. That's the big news this week. We'll talk about all that game in a second. But the poll just dropped right before we jumped on it to record the podcast. And surprise, take a look at this. We have yet another 1 versus 2 matches. Number 1 Southington versus number 2 Maloney. Southington beat Glastonbury last week, 27-6. Maloney shut out Connor, 32-0. The voters just bumped everybody up now that New Canaan lost to St. Joseph. And we have our first number 1 versus 2 since last year, Darien St. Joseph. And in fact, it is the 3rd straight season we've had a 1 versus 2 matchup. That does not include, obviously, 2020. So 2019 in the Class L final. You all remember that. St. Joseph was number 2, beat number 1 Hand. And then last year, Darien was number 1. Or were they number 1? Yeah, they were. Yeah, Darien was number 1, 42-14 over St. Joseph. And here we are. Maloney beat Darien. Southington beat number 1 Greenwich. You know what? I didn't quite vote Maloney that way, Pete, but I can't quibble with it. I think that's fine. I think this is about right.
Yeah, I mean, I called it. I think it was Friday night when I was driving home from New Canaan. I think I slacked you and Mike Fornabayo, and I said, let's start preparing for potential 1 versus 2, because kind of the way the chips fell, the way the voters vote. I don't vote, Maloney's not my number 2 team in the ballot. But I kind of saw the writing on the wall that they're both undefeated. This one's a defending champion, 1 beat Greenwich. It's probably going to be how the vote is going. Here they are. I mean, last year when they played, it was the first time in the regular season they had played in a long time. Southington won 13-7 in what I will always say is one of the ugliest games I've ever covered in my entire life. First game back after the year off. I mean, there were so many penalties. It was just a disaster of a football game. But yeah, I mean, this is huge. I emailed the Maloney AD, the game's at Falcon Field in Maloney, and parking is not very good there. So I messaged him. I'm like, hey, I'm going to be there. Just letting you know, because you're probably going to get a lot of emails. So as soon as I saw the poll, I emailed him. I was like, I'm just letting you know I'm going to go. So, just make sure you put me on that parking list, because it's going to be a madhouse at Falcon Field.
And then now Maloney, 19 straight wins. I think Southern has only lost how many times since then? I think twice.
They lost to Hall, they lost to Connard, and then I believe they lost in the playoffs.
Yes. Well, they didn't win a state
last year. No, I know, but they made the playoffs at 8-2 and didn't make and lost. So they lost 3 times since then. But this is a really interesting matchup, right? We got Maloney, a defending champion with all new faces across the field, minus Jojo Gonzalez, who Kevin Frederick talked about at length on this show. One of the top players for the Spartans. And then, Southington on the other side, Cardillo is having an unbelievable season. I mean, they send in their stats every week, and I look at his overall totals, and they get crazier and crazier each week. De Benedetto's playing great. At quarterback, they are down Evan Anderson. We talked about he is out for the year. I've said this. I don't know if I've said this on the show. Southington is good. They are probably the most complete team that I've seen on all 3 phases of the game. Cardillo also kicks. But, the 2 times I've seen them, very complete team. They don't make super big mistakes, or they don't make a lot of mistakes. Maloney comes in. I mean, Maloney they're the number 2 team. You tell them that, they still, they're going to say, well, we're the underdogs. Yeah, technically they're 1 year 2. You can view yourselves as the underdogs, and they use that to their advantage, and they use it well. I mean, when we post the games to pick this week in the Pickems, a lot of people are probably going to pick Southington, and I'll bet anybody anything Kevin's going to print it out Thursday morning, slap it on the board in the Maloney locker room, and say, see, we're still the underdogs.
Yeah.
So no matter what their ranking is, Maloney will use this as kind of fuel. I'm excited. I'm going to go. I'm going to go get my Kayla May steamed cheeseburger before. The Greenwich football team tweeted at me. They'll be in attendance. They play Saturday. So I said, hey, go to Ted's or Kayla May's to try some of the Meriden cuisine. Yeah,
I
think
have a taste
it's
test.
house.
Go to one and then have half the team go to one and have to. I don't know.
But I think there's going to be a lot of people there. I think this is a huge game, and I think it's one we saw coming, that they would both be undefeated. Once Maloney beat Darien and Southington beat Greenwich that the same weekend, I think we all looked at this like, hey, they're going to be 7-0. I didn't think they'd be 1-2, but here we are.
Fair enough. I mean, I put St. Joe over them. I put over Maloney. I put Greenwich over them. I think you can put West Haven over them. I know a lot of West Haven kids are sitting there going like, "Well, did we beat Maloney?" Yeah, you did. They beat them up in the preseason though, so it doesn't count. Who knows? We're not. Ansonia used to do that with West Haven all the time. Oh, we beat West Haven, so we should be number 1. Yeah, you beat them at a preseason game. But if you look at the history of the number 2 versus number 1, I mean, Kevin's not wrong to sit there and say he's still the underdog, because if you really look at it, there have only been a handful of teams that have been involved in these. These are all top programs, and Southington is right there, one of them. If anybody in the northern part of the state is involved in it, it's only Southington. You want to throw Xavier in there, the 2 times that they were in the number 1 versus they were the number 2 team both times, actually. Number 2 in 2005 when they beat Southington with Amari Spivey. They beat Kelleher and those guys. It was Spivey who went to the NFL. And then you had Xavier starting off the season in 2010, beginning their dominant run of 3 state championships. They beat Notre Dame the previous year's number 1. And that year's preseason number 1. And then it was after that, it was Darien. And then they had the St. Joseph game. But the famous one that Southington was involved in was 2015 when you had, we've mentioned this many times, when you had Mark Ivanchik chasing, Jason Rose all around, ending Southington's run of 2 state championships. You think of all the great players that have been in these games in recent years. I mean, let's start off because we talked about Spivey. Then there's like Graham Stewart from Xavier, the great linebacker, played at Florida for a little bit, came back and played it for UConn. Some great players there. 2015, obviously Ivanchik, Jason Rose in that game. 2016,
Alex Gemelli too.
Alex Gemelli. How can I forget? I think he was gone by then. 2015. I think Gemelli was gone. That was a big part of it. Gemelli had been graduated because he played in 13, played in 14, and last year. So Gemelli definitely not. But 2016, Drew Pine, New Canaan, playing against Darien in that great game. You had all the stars of Darien, but
and Jack Stewart and Jack Connolly, both Boston College, Michigan, UConn.
Yeah, absolutely. Stars abound. Shout out for Drew Pine and Notre Dame beating my Orange on Saturday.
Hail to your Notre Dame.
Anyway, and then finally, 2021. Let's look back there. I mean, St. Joseph loaded, and obviously Jaden Sheridan.
2019. Yep.
2019. Excuse me. In the Class L championship, Jaden Sheridan, who is the country's leading rusher right now, Monmouth, which is ridiculous. Shout out to Jaden. Just an amazing job by him, and he was, the MVP of that game for sure. Putting hand away and giving St. Joseph the number 1 trophy, and then obviously last year, coming back off the pandemic, and then Darien just basically pushing St. Joseph. A lot of people like St. Joseph at number 1, and there they were, and they took care of them on their way to the state championship. So lots of history in this game, so it should be really fascinating. Not sure if I'm going to be there yet. I've been to all these games except the 2005 Xavier Southington game. I think I was over at Trumbull.
Come with me. We'll carpool, and we'll go to Kayla May's.
We'll see. It might be some other teams need a little bit of coverage too. It can't all be just this. But I've been to all these games, 2010, 15, 16, 19, 21.
Yes, I remember 2019. You had to go to that game. Yeah. And you were like, you know what, Pete, you go to Trumbull High School for the championships. Nothing crazy is going to happen over there.
I didn't think St. Joseph. I'm sorry, I didn't think Newtown was going to win that game like the way they did on the anniversary of Sandy Hook. My goodness. But hey, we're glad you got that little piece of history. But so again, this is always lots of history in these. So we'll see how the guys in this game, will be remembered going forward. But obviously big. They're in two different divisions, which is a shame. But I mean, maybe Maloney would have been an L anyway. Interesting. It's very interesting. It has going to have a bearing on who's going to be number one at the end of the year, obviously. Yep. Going to the rest of the poll, most of the teams won. The big one, obviously, was I think they were number 6 at the time, St. Joseph, beating number 2 New Canaan and knocking them out. I was over at Valley, Cromwell, Portland, and I got this text from Pete saying New Canaan's defense is legit. Now, what I had done was I went off on the podcast saying, I don't know if they're that good. They haven't played anybody. And Pete's kind of sticking the knife in a little bit there. But obviously, St. Joseph, as I said last week, St. Joseph's got the better defense. They're the truth. Pete, you were there. What happened to the Rams?
New Canaan's defense is legit. Stand by it. They swarm tackle. They were all over the place. And New Canaan's biggest flaw in that game was their offense. Their offense could not get anything going against St. Joe's. St. Joe's defense, awesome. Like, not taking anything away from the Hogs defense. They played great. Jack Kilmartin was basically playing on one leg. I mean, had a great day. St. Joe's defense was great, but New Canaan scored on a pick 6 right at the opener. I think it was like their 4th defensive touchdown in 2 weeks. And you're like, oh, is St. Joe's offense going to be able to do something? They got down to get points, got stopped, walked away with 2 field goals in the first half, 7-6. And you're like, can St. Joe's break through? And right at the beginning of the second half kickoff, I'm standing on the sideline, and Joe Delvecchia comes up to me, crosses his arms, puts his hand on his chin, says, we gotta get one. Like, we gotta get one. And I'm the big, pump up guy. I'm like, Coach, you guys are right there. Like I think you guys will get one.
Pete's setting up for a fall later on.
second or third play of the second half, Groff throws an interception. Connor Fahey, who couldn't catch a cold at the beginning of the year, with an interception, takes it all the way down to the 1. Riley Jordan goes in 2-3 plays later, but St. Joe's is up. New Canaan was able to score on like a weird 40, 45, 49-yard touchdown kind of broken play. That was it, though. St. Joe's defense locked down. I think they had 3 interceptions, had a fumble recovery, and St. Joe's turned them into points. I mean, St. Joe's was such a well-coached team. They did, they took advantage of the opportunities ahead of them. Lou Marinelli, the New Canaan coach, said it to Mike Fornavaio after the game. Like, there was some inexperience on that offense, and it showed. But I don't want anyone to take anything away from the New Canaan defense. They were awesome. They were just on the field a lot. Yeah. And St. Joe's made it pay. I mean, look, Riley Jordan. Yeah. I think this is like the 2nd or 3rd week in a row we've talked about him. We didn't really talk about him at the beginning of the year. Jordan. I got one video. Make sure you put it in the live action. He runs angry to seal the game to the last touchdown to go 27-14. He flips one New Canaan defender over his shoulder, like, get out of here. And then one kid just ready to tackle him, he just lowers his head and pushes him 5 yards into the end zone. I mean, he was running angry. And New Canaan's defense, obviously they were tired, they were getting kind of beat up, but they held strong, and then Riley just punched him in the mouth. I mean, it was an awesome game. I'm so glad we called that audible on Friday.
Yeah, we were going to go opposites. In fact, actually, I was going to go see North Haven, Cheshire. That was the plan. Actually, the plan was you go to North Haven, Cheshire.
Yep, and you were going to go to Valley. So you were going to go to Valley, and then you were like, wait, we're not at New Canaan St. Joe's? And then you were like, all right, I'll go there and this, and then we just flipped.
Then we flipped it. And I was going to, I wanted to see, we talked to Sagnella last week, I wanted to see North Haven. I still want to see North Haven.
Yeah.
I was like, we don't even have any footage of his team this year or last year to use on the live action podcast. We didn't see Cheshire either. We didn't get any good videos of them. So, but then, I don't know what happened. I was just like, I gotta stay. It's just the way the game was shaping up, and the fact that DeMoro and Laurie's there, and Jerry's like, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go to Cheshire, and he's like, are you really? And I'm like, maybe not. It's only half hour away. I'm like, Then I texted you guys, I'm going to stick around for this Cromwell Portland game. I think it's going to be good. And sure enough, man, my faith rewarded.
Yep.
Just to wrap up the top 10, Pete. Number 7, we have 5 St. Joseph, number 6, New Canaan now. 7 is Hamden, beat up on Brantford 27. 0, we'll be talking plenty of Hamden next week when they get ready to play West Haven. You have number 8, Ansonia, beat up on Oxford. Number 9, North Haven, smothering Chester's offense, doing just enough on their offense, 10-0. And then finally, Staples, hooray! Took care of who they played, Norwalk. They took care of the Norwalk and cracked the top 10.
4 weeks late.
Yeah, welcome back, Adam Behrens and Tyler Clark and the Wreckers. Welcome to the top 10. Yeah, 4 weeks late, but you're finally made it. The voters this year seem a little late on everything. Killingly, though, sitting there still at 11 ahead of Wyndham, which I don't get it. I don't get it. But I'm glad Staples is finally in your top 10, at number 10, Pete.
Yeah, it's nice to see. I mean, I've been voting them, I think 7 or 8 the last 4 weeks since they beat Trumbull. And I'm like, how is nobody voting for this team? How? But it took them beating Norwalk, who's obviously having a tough year and is struggling. It took a 49-point win over Norwalk for them to be like, hey, maybe this team should be a top 10 team. And then you even look down, Killingly still ahead of Wyndham, eye roll. Berlin 7-0, they're getting votes. Berlin, they're not going to play anyone down the stretch. Berlin's going to be 10-0 at the end of the year, maybe 9-1. Depends on Middletown.
Yeah.
Cromwell, Portland 7-0. Newtown 6-1. Newtown lost their opener to Greenwich.
Yeah.
And they've done nothing but win.
Yeah,
since.
I put them up on my poll this year. Yeah.
I put them up on mine.
Yeah,
Fairfield Prep
big win
4-3
on Friday night too.
Yeah, I mean Prep 4-3. Holy Cross 6-1, getting some love. Shelton at 4-3, Cheshire 5-2, Trumbull. You just kind of look at it and you go, man, some of these teams play really tough schedules, and it's really hard to expect them to win all of them. But
I think we were a little late on Shelton. Shelton didn't do enough for us. I don't know what they were doing there last week after losing to West Haven, but hey, they got a lot of respect there, Shelton. But Shelton's got a lot of work to do. We'll talk about all the playoff possibilities in a little bit, but first we got to jump to our guest this week and talk a little Cromwell, Portland, Valley Regional, and talk about the Panthers with our guest, Randell Bennett. Joining us on the show is, of course, the aforementioned head football coach of the Cromwell, Portland Panthers. It is Randell Bennett, the man, the myth, the legend. Welcome to the Meat Grinder. We had a little audio problems here. We're ready to go. How you doing? That's a nice office, your AD there. We thought it was yours at first, but it looks primo either way.
You win a big game, man. You get the big guy's office, right? Now, man, yeah, it's awesome times right now in Cromwell and Portland. We guys did some community service in the morning yesterday, helping people carry groceries to their cars. So it was good to get out there and see some people after the big win, and let the guys get those good praises.
Yeah, is there local kind of, obviously it's a co-op, it's 2 different towns, but how is there a lot of community support?
1000%. I mean, between us being visible at the youth games and I think now we're getting back to a time in our program where there's a lot of younger brothers coming up again. You know what I mean? We had a stretch where it was we don't have any legacy guys anymore. And now, Mecca's younger brother's a freshman for us right now. So these families kind of getting to go through the program is a good thing, because it's okay, now you kind of know what it is. You understand the expectations when you're coming here, and it allows us to keep moving forward, building on what we've done already.
You're a Cromwell guy. You grew up in town, right? You played on the first.
Yep, since '98.
Yeah, you play. Take us back a little bit. That way, anyone doesn't know, Randell. He was on the first. You were on the first team, right? And the first team that went to the finals. It didn't take very long for Coach to get you guys there. Right. But tell us about how this program came to be, and how far it's come over the last 20 years.
I mean, it was really just a lot of guys were still playing youth in high school at the time. I was way too big to play, so I stopped playing youth in 6th grade. And I was kind of lost without football. You know, I was trying out basketball, but I was, you know, a 6'2" center, right? Not much going there. And then
how old were you at 6'2"?
my freshman year, I was a freshman, definitely a freshman. I was 6'2", 230. We didn't have football, man. I was just out here wandering, I guess.
With the height restrictions, right?
Yeah, the weight restrictions was like 170. I had been past that, you know, so I couldn't play in 7th grade, you know, 8th grade, 9th grade, and then they hired Coach Morello. The parents here, actually, you know, the Board of Ed, we had to raise 30 grand, you know, so guys were doing car washes and going door to door with, you know, Cromwell football stickers, you know, handing them out, for taking donations and giving people a sticker, you know, and just like the people in town just really kind of came together to, you know, get us a football team. And, you know, from there, the rest was history, man. Coach Morello, he just really taught us about culture, taught us about a team, taught us about accountability, and that just kind of carried us through. I mean, you got Chris Laurenti, he's the linebackers coach at URI right now. You know, he was in my class. You know, I remember the early days in weight room. You know, we didn't have a weight room here. We would go to Wow Fitness, and me and Chris and Coach Morello he would have us lifting, doing squats and doing bench, and it would just be us three in the gym. And like, that's kind of how the program got started. And then recruiting in the hallways, and from there it just, it blossomed. A lot of younger brothers came in, and yeah, we made it. I think the story is crazier because there were so many good teams at the time. You know, I say back then, every public school had a Division I kid.
Yeah.
You know, so we would go to Southington's 7-on-7 in the summer before my senior year. And, you know, Bloomfield had, you know, Corey Sheets, you know, Darnell Delaire, you know, they had all these guys.
Yeah.
And, you know, Platt had Mike Shorter. He went to Fordham. I mean, I remember vividly being like, we want to compete with these guys, right? A lot of these guys, you see around, and then it's like, you know, we would just exhaust all avenues to try and beat these guys in 7-on-7.
Well, I have a quick question. I have a quick question, Cole.
Right.
Where did kids go to play football before Cromwell had a program?
They were playing youth still. So a lot of guys were like 9th grade. Some of the older lighters were still sophomores, still playing youth.
They didn't have a high school team though. So if you were even higher than, you had nowhere to go. Is that right? Or could you go somewhere else?
Right. Could not. Well, I mean, Middletown has BOAG, and you know what I mean. There's Xavier, but those weren't really, you know, options. You know, my mother was a single parent. You know, 2 jobs. Like when we were going to public school.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
But so you guys, you said that there were a lot of guys you were walking around. You saw them at all the youth or the off season stuff, and you're like this. You were kind of motivated by them, huh?
Yeah. Those 7-on-7 days, man. I mean, it was just, we would spend a lot of our time together in the summer. I remember our biggest holiday was when NCAA football would come out. You know, we would spend a lot of time at somebody's house, you know, while their parents were at work playing the game. And, you know, from there, it would just be like, man, we're going to 7-on-7. And I was going to 7-on-7. I didn't play a lick, but I had to be there. You know what I mean? And, yeah, I mean, Aaron Hernandez, we play all these guys, DJ Hernandez, you know, the tournament, like, you know, you're seeing all these guys, and then we all go to college, and then it's like you're watching all these guys playing, you know what I'm saying, on TV. I remember sitting in the hotel room my senior year in college, and, you know, I'm watching Corey Sheets on one channel, flip the channel, App State's beating Michigan, you know what I mean? Like, these memories are ingrained. It was like I wanted to be a part of this so bad, you know what I mean? Like, and for these opportunities to come from, you know, people in town just wanting to have football here, you know, it's like almost like I got to pay it forward now.
So it didn't take, you played in a state championship game. If I remember, that was what, 2002, 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have this We have this awesome photo of you, Coach, from your playing days. And you guys beat Immaculate, and you're like standing 7 feet taller than everyone else with your hands up. I think I sent it to you last year.
Yeah.
But it's a great photo.
Yeah, that was the coldest game. You know, it was like 28, and the wind chill had it down to like 13 or something. Now, I walked into the locker room that day, our little shed locker room back then. We're still in it now, but I look at one of my teammates, and I'm like, no sleeves tonight. So I wore a T-shirt under my jersey, and you drink water, it freeze right on your jersey if it fell on your jersey. I mean, it was freezing that night.
Oh yeah, I remember that night. I was at West Haven NFA, I believe it was that, or maybe it was Danbury. I don't remember which one. No, I think it was Danbury. They played the winner. They played the New Britain in the next round, but it was freezing. It was, or was it the no? Right. No, it was free. It was freezing.
New Britain was pretty good back then too. You know, Coach Miller used to have us doing work with them as well. You know what I mean? And that's kind of where I got the idea that you got to play some bigger teams to kind of get yourself ready. You know,
what led you back? I mean, you go to college. You play in college. Where'd you play?
I played at Valley Forge Military College. It's a junior college in Wayne, Pennsylvania, where another legend, Jim Burner.
Oh yeah.
And then he got me a scholarship to go to Grambling, and
that's right.
Man, you want to talk about culture shock, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I just remember, just not really believing some of the things that were happening to me at that time. Just like, you go on the road and then like the Boston Celtics walk into your hotel, and you know what I mean? Like James Posey and all these guys, like we're down in Houston. I didn't expect to turn around and see, James Posey and, Michael Finley was there. We'd just see a bunch of guys. And I was like, man, football can do so many great things for you, man. Open this world up to you. So when I got there, Melvin Spears was the head coach. Doug Williams had just left probably the year before I got there. He took a job at the Tampa Bay Bucks. I mean, he's still super visible in the program. He'd just pop into practice sometimes. But I played for Melvin Spears my first year, and then my second year, Rod Broadway was the head coach. I mean, Rod Broadway just taught us so much about the game. Not that we didn't learn a lot from Coach Spears, but, how a team should be run, how a team should work. I mean, this is a guy that, he played at the University of North Carolina. He was teammates with Lawrence Taylor, right? So when he starts talking about D-line play, you're like, all right, I better listen. Even as an offensive lineman, I'm trying to find out the tricks of the trade so I can beat it, right? But I mean, yeah, just playing with so many guys, seeing guys that were ready to play there as a freshman, you know what I mean, at that level, when it was taking me time to adjust, you know what I mean, really made me when I came back, it was like, okay, we have to do it this way, or else we're never gonna, you know what I mean? It took me a solid year before I was able to like consistently contribute, you know what I mean? And it was still like I still had work to do, but when I first walked in, I mean, I tell the story all the time, and David Hicks, he was a linebacker for us, and he ended up on the Chiefs the next year, and we were in a 2-minute drill, and yeah, that first day he looked at me, he said, now it's your turn to get it, freshman. And he just ran right by me, man. I was like, I never seen anybody like that. I said, he runs a 4.4 at 240. Like, all right. His son is the number 1 D tackle in Texas right now.
Wow. Committed
to Texas A&M. So, yeah, man.
You brushed up.
It's amazing what you can learn about the game.
You brushed up with all. I mean, that's the thing. You go out to maybe you get out of your get out of your bubble, right? You go to a school like a Grambling or wherever. And it's just amazing how much of the world opens up, the different type of characters out there who could teach you a thing or two about, I went to Syracuse, same deal, and I covered some of those great Syracuse teams. And it was just, I would travel around the country and just see all these other reporters out there. And I would learn from them. So you got something that was just invaluable. You took that home, right? You took all that stuff.
Right.
How did you end up back at Cromwell? Like what led you back here and did you have designs on being a head coach when you were how early, and what led you back?
I mean, I think because after I finished playing at Grambling, I had a little opportunity in the NFL. Truth be told, I don't think I was really prepared. You know what I mean? My own doing. You know what I'm saying? Just because I didn't know any better. You're 21, you're trying to go through this business. If you don't have that, bubble, you know what I mean? That, some of my teammates had, I came back to Connecticut to train, and I was just homesick. You know what I mean? But I came back to train, and it was like, it's hard to do it when you're the only one that's training for this thing, right? So I end up getting a couple offers to play in like arena leagues, and I just chased that as much as I could because I was still learning so much about playing the game. I mean, my rookie year in arena, I was playing for the Harrisburg Stampede, and we had 2 D linemen from Clemson, we had an O lineman from Iowa, we had DBs from NC State, Ole Miss, and these guys were like, yeah, the NC State guy, yeah, he played with Russell Wilson, right? Like there was just all these guys and all these stories you're hearing about guys, and it was just like, man, I was just learning so much and doing so much and getting connected. And when I finally felt like my playing days were over, I moved back home, and I was just on Twitter. I used to go work out at the practice field, and Coach Eckert reached out to me and was asking me if I wanted to volunteer, and I said, why not? And I just came on, and I started to see a bunch of guys that reminded me of myself. And from there, it was just like, if I was this, 6'4", 290-pound kid, at Cromwell, and Coach Bortz used to tell me all the time, I'm not saying you're going to play at Florida or Tennessee. He used to send me down and say this. He said, but you got the size, you can go somewhere. And just, people planting that seed in my head, it was like, how could I look at some of these kids and not give them the same advice, not give them the same, knowledge that I have to, try and make this possible for yourself if you love the game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because this game was just amazing.
Coach,
I love arena football. I grew up going to New York Dragons games. That's so cool.
I've never, right. Yeah. I played in Kansas City for the KC Command. That was one of my second stop. I went all the way out there. I played in Omaha for the Beef for a little bit. I ultimately came back to Harrisburg to play, and we won a championship in 2012 or 2013. 2013. I think that kind of fulfilled me. I lost to Ansonia in 2003. And then in 2007, at Grambling, we lost to Jackson State in the SWAC championship.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to win one, man. I can't hang it up without winning one, So when I got back, it was just like, I started as an unpaid volunteer in my first year. And then that next year, Chris Eckert, he kind of said, well, you got to take the JV job. I did it for 3 years, and it was awesome because Bryce Carsetter comes in the next year, and I kind of got to be his coach. Same things I'm doing with Cole now, call your own plays in the JV game. I want to know what you're seeing so I can coach you up. And then, Chris steps down and I take over, and Bryce has 2 years left. And it was just a remarkable run. It was love to see it. I'm going to see him play at versus Endicott. Kevin Hinkle and Ismar Kandick, 2 of our other guys, they're going to play against each other in their last regular season game on November 12th. So it's pretty cool to get to see these guys, and they're doing internships and their life is getting started. They got facial hair now. It's like, man, I watch you guys grow up.
When did you decide that I'm going to be I know he put you in there as head JV coach, but now he steps down and then you're like, you know what, I'm going to be the coach now. Or did you decide long before that you want to be the coach?
He asked me one time. He said, what do you think about being a head coach? Do you want to be a head coach? And I told him, I was like, if I'm going to be a head coach, I think I would only be a head coach here. Not that I'm trying to push you out, but I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable. Just sitting here underneath you, learning as much as I can. And I learned a lot from those guys. The onside kicks that we do. Chris had this idea He was like, we kick it off, and guys usually return it to about the 40-yard line on us. So he said, why don't we just onside kick it every time, and then what's the worst, they get it at the 50, that's 8 more yards. I was like, he might be on to something.
Yeah.
Right? So we did it, and funny that this weekend went the way it did, because there was one of those years we played Morgan. They didn't get the ball back for the entire third quarter. We onside kicked it every time they did not get the ball back.
That's wild.
So it was right. But
You know,
things like that, John Bosley, we learned a lot from, in
Yeah.
the run game, and it was some good guys up here too.
you've quit. I mean, you're pretty young. I mean, a lot of coaches start out pretty young, but it's when I watch you coach out there and talk to these kids, and the way they respond to you, it seems pretty much like you're. I was talking to Pete a little about this. I mean, you're kind of. I don't want to say you're a player's coach, but you relate to them maybe a little bit more than
Right.
a lot of other coaches do. What do you say?
I think, Jack Wilson always says to me, he's like, this is almost a team that's run by players. We got 7 coaches, 5 of them played here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we kind of know what it's like to play here, right? And, some of them as recently as, Ethan Roy's the youngest, but he came out in 2017 when he graduated. So that 26 Eckert's last year was, his last year. So, these guys being here, they kind of know what it takes to walk in these hallways, to lift in our weight room, to get ready to play a game at Pierson Park. They're a little bit jealous. It's a little bit better atmosphere there now than when they played here, certainly from when I played here. We used to have a Cromwell growers truck, a big box truck with a table on top. That was our press box. And they just had the rope. You know what I mean? And that was it. We used to pick up rocks on Fridays before the game on Saturday off the field. That was the humble beginnings, man. But we just wanted a seat at the table, right? We're going to play some football. We don't care where we play, right? And it's like 38 guys, goal line to goal line, pick up as many rocks as you can. Practice is over, right? And that was it. Yeah.
It's been quite the climb, though, right? Now you guys are kind of entrenched. There's a target on the back of the program. But I remember you and I talking last preseason, and I've interviewed a lot of coaches in my day, and I'd interviewed you numerous times before. But we talked in the preseason, and you looked at me, and you were like, "We have the best linebackers in the state, and we're probably going to win a state title this year." And I was like, wow, it's August, and he is really I'm like, is he confident or is he kind of borderline and cocky?
That's
and then
usually a no-no for coaches.
Right.
That's usually a no-no for coaches, man.
Right.
But
They don't want to hear it.
You were so confident in the group in the way that you explained it, because they all played in 19 when they were freshmen or sophomores, and so you had all this returning. But I mean, what is it that the kids did, or that you saw that made you confident in this group, and obviously in the group that you have this year as well?
I mean, I knew a lot of guys. When I talked to other coaches, they would be like, we don't know what we have yet. And that was just something, as early as April, the year before, we were doing workouts, and the seniors didn't think they were going to play, and they were just letting us work out during COVID. So they weren't showing up. So we just got time to do these workouts with Teddy. We would go to Portland for an hour, work those guys out, then we would drive back to Cromwell for an hour and work those guys out. And we did that up until October, when it started getting dark earlier, and then took a month off. And then in November, we went into ATI to train. And it was just, Jarvis Miller, one of my mentees, he was a Penn State UMass guy.
Yeah.
He was his pro day was 2 weeks after we got shut down for COVID.
Oh, wow.
So, these guys got to watch a guy work out every day, twice a day, go run hills with him, go do drills with him at the sand pit at one of the parks in Cromwell. He would come to Cromwell, he'd work out with these guys. Because I think they motivated him, just being hungry, and, vice versa. He was just teaching them so much. And when we got to the spring, New Britain, Isaiah Bodie reached out to me and asked that we want to do a 7-on-7. And it was just us, New Britain, and Farmington. And I mean, these guys were just floating, right? And they didn't lose. Didn't lose a game. We played both of them. We didn't lose a game. And then we went to Southern's 7-on-7 tournament, and we lost to Capital Prep Harbor early, and then we lost to Maloney twice. Once it was in the championship. And I mean, I'm looking, we're the only Class S school there, you know, but I got there late. We had already beat Naughty. Then we beat West Haven. And then we beat Stratford in overtime. It was just like, all right, like, I got to start giving you guys your credit, you know what I mean? And I always told them, I said, even in April, I said, if we're good like this now, we need to continue to work and imagine where we can be in August, right? Let's hit the ground running in August. And, you know, thank God we did, because we opened with Morgan. You know, they were a playoff team. You know, we had to go down there and play those guys. And, you know, that could have easily, you know, set us right off 0-1. You know, Drew Nye, you know what I mean? But those guys, they just put some work in. And, you know, we were Jack Wilson calls our linebackers the best linebackers in the state. So I might have just been feeling that energy from him, because it was like, awesome. we would like watch them play, and he'd be like, they're the best. And I would just be like, I mean, we seen what Teddy did that season. He was doing those things in the summer, you know, that Stratford game in overtime. It was whoever gains the most yards, that was overtime. You know, we go first, Cole throws a fade, and Ted catches it for a touchdown. It was like, all right, I didn't know we could do that, right? And it's just like, all right, dude, once I see you do something, that's kind of the expectation here, right? So you can't be a guy that goes out there and you're mossing guys, and then when we need you to do it in the game, you're not doing it, right? Everybody's relying on you. We kind of just put that, I guess, as pressure, but you know what I mean, those expectations on you. You got to lock in, and you got to do whatever you need to do to get yourself there. You talk about Steph Curry a lot, you know, guys like that, Pat Mahomes, like where they get in this zone, right? And I'm like, you have to get yourself there to where you're clicking on all cylinders, right? It can't be a sometimes thing with you, especially if you're going to be a guy for us, right? Because there's going to be a day where, and you've seen it Friday night, where Valley says, not today, Ryan Rosick, and they double teamed them and triple teamed them, and someone else has to step up. You know, so we talk about those things all the time. You know what I mean? You gotta get yourself there. You gotta get ready.
Tell me about your guys this year. You know, obviously, you know, we could go on and on, and you know, about the last year's team was great. You know, winning that title. I mean, just the look on everyone's faces to do it there, small school program. But you know, now you're on the mountaintop, right? And now it's like you only lose a few guys. You know, some good guys, all state caliber kids. But you were like, I think we're going to be okay. But then, you know, you guys have a lot of adversity to fight through this year. Tell us a little bit about that.
Right. I mean, early on, I think, like, they're high school kids, and I get that. But some days, like, if we don't get to go out and practice, and then we play in a game, and then we win the game, they kind of think that's the precedent, right? Like, we don't need to practice every day. And then it becomes this thing, right, where it's like, guys, we need to get better. You know, like, I respect Mark Basil, right? Like, I know he's not going to come in here and just like have no game plan, right? He's going to be prepared for you. These coaches are going to start preparing for your weaknesses, right? So you have to constantly be working on those things. And I think it just took, I said after the game, our young guys, 23-1 to end their youth career. Then they join this team, and it's like, they don't think losing is possible, you know? So they, you know, trying to get them to understand, you know, the details and the small things that matter. Johnny Beltre is definitely a guy that, you know, he's out at practice early, right? And he's out there before everyone else, and he's working on his back pedal. And then Derek Wilson might come out, and then they start working on back pedal and braking. It's funny because that play at the end of the game, I mean, those are all things we practice. You know what I mean? Like, he's standing with the receiver, guys pressing him. He rips off outside, right? Thing we do in practice all the time with the DBs. And then the summer we do a drill. I'll refer to it as the oblique drill, right? Where you run up, and now the quarterback's going to throw it, and you got to get back on a 45-degree angle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we practice those things. And for him to come up in that moment, you know, it just like, I couldn't hear, right? We're at Pierson Park. I played in the Cotton Bowl before, right? I'm like, I couldn't hear. We were at Pearson. I was yelling at guys to get back, and I'm like, we couldn't hear. Like, it was just that crazy. I'm so happy for him. I'm so happy for Derek Wilson. You know, he was a soccer player. He started all 13 games for us last year at safety, and now, I mean, he's going to be a college football player. You know, this guy is, I mean, there's a play in the game where, you know, they get our DN reached. They did some misdirection, and Jean-Pierre is going left. And, I mean, they got David Weston reached. They get up to Ryan Rosick. He's got the entire outside. Derek Wilson sprints up, tackles him for a 1-yard gain. Wow. Right? When everyone was wrong, you made them right. Like, it's just an amazing game to watch. And I sat on it for a day before I put it on. But, like, I was just amazed, man. These guys are really learning how to play the game. But, I mean, Emeka is, you know, he's a dog. You know, I mean, 8 sacks last year. You know, not having Alex Hare this year kind of hurts him a little bit. You know, now he's the focal point. He has to learn how to play as the focal point on the D-line.
Right.
But nonetheless, making huge plays. Alex McKiernan has stepped up. You know, I mean, his first 2 starts, semifinal state championship last year, I keep trying to tell him, like, your experience will come. It'll carry you through, but you're at, like, 9 starts. You know, Ryan Rosick is at, 31. You know what I mean? Like, you have some time to catch up before you're doing what he can do. You know what I mean? But, yeah, those guys, man.
They play great. Yeah. I thought your O-line as a unit was very, you know, you had to run a methodical, clock-killing drives. First of all, you got to get the TDs, 2 of them, to go ahead. Yeah. But they didn't make a mistake. I mean, there might have been one. I didn't see it. And then, obviously, Cole Brisson, just the general, basically, you know, keeping it. And the only time it was just a great play that they made. They got him the ball back, but you almost ran the clock out on him. But I thought your defense played great. But I thought your offense was really just the way they were stoic and really just they knew exactly what they were doing. It was impressive. It was a sight to see, Coach. It really was.
Yeah, they definitely leaned on each other in those moments. And I think it was just us being calm when things weren't going well early. I think that helped them a lot. I think the halftime speech of, you know, some of you guys were here at Rocky Hill last year. We were down the same way. You know what to do. We got to come back. Got to leave it all out there. And, you know, they kind of ran out of there ready to play. And, you know, miracle onside kick. Johnny Beltre hits the guy going to recover it, and we get the ball back. You know, Johnny was just all over Friday night. And, yeah, just some huge plays, man. Huge plays. Got a couple sacks.
Quickly tell me about, I know I wrote about him a little bit, but tell us a little bit about Cole. You know, I mean, how far he's come, and, you know, what's the future look like for him?
Yeah, I mean, Cole is just, you know, Cole's dad played at Central. You know what I mean? And I remember his freshman year, you know, those guys, we were going through it, man. We lost 8 straight. And there was just a legendary speech after film, like, don't take this for granted. Don't take this game for granted. Like, you know, your dad played the game. You know, he went to school. He met your mom. Like, the game has changed your family's life. You know what I'm saying? Don't take this game for granted. And, I mean, just he goes to Def QB coach. You know what I mean? He worked on his game a lot. You know what I mean? And he came back, and it was all of a sudden, it was like, whoa, this kid's pretty good. And he knows the offense, like, inside and out. You know, if I call the play wrong, he can be like, you want to run it to this way? Should it be this? And I'll be like, yep, you got it. And, you know, sometimes he'll be like, let me run a hitch to Ben Fagan. You know what I mean? And I'll be like, well, if you want to do that, we got to get it done, though, right? And he just does those things. He's just super confident, you know, doesn't have a problem, you know what I mean, getting guys lined up right, telling them what they need to do. You know what I'm saying? We got a lot of young guys, so, you know, emotions come in, and he might be like, you're going first, you know, because the freshmen, they don't really understand it yet. So he's just, we call him the general for a reason. And, I mean, just super accurate with throwing the ball. You know, his opportunities range from, you know, FBS walk-on all the way down to Division III. He's really not sure what he wants to do. You know, he likes a lot of the small schools. You know, I'd love to see him play in that Trinity because, you know, it's an easy trip for me and Trey to get out there and go see him, you know. So, but he likes Cortland. He went to Brown this past weekend. We're excited for him, man. I know it's been a lot of pressure on him. That's why he said he doesn't like to talk about the streak, and he would have liked to have been signed or, committed somewhere before the season started. So, just my hat goes off to him for coming in here every day and leading us with all that going on in the background. He's a 4.0 kid, just a great kid.
What's the situation? I mean, Alex, you were hoping you'd get him back earlier, but it looks like he probably toward the end of the year. But he could have come back. Is that right? Alex Harry, running back.
Yeah. Well, they told us 3 weeks after the Granby game, I think. So 3 to 4 weeks after that game. So yeah, he was itching to get back out there after the Granby game. I said,
well, how hard is it going to be for him to come back?
We haven't played too many close ones like that.
How hard is it going to be for him to come back?
I mean, we'll see where we're actually going to use him, if we just use him on defense or if he can do both. I'm sure he'll tell us, you know what I mean? But we got this two-headed monster right now with McKiernan and Yearwood, and it's like, you throw Alex Hare into that mix. If he can run, you know what I mean? If he can do Alex Hare things with the ball again, I mean, that would be awesome. We could definitely use his help on the defensive line. Just a strong kid, 500-pound squat kid. You know what I mean? We could use him.
One of the interesting things of that game, and Mike DeMoro brought it up, was that there was you had 2 black head coaches and you had a black head referee. How significant is that? I mean, it didn't dawn on me until afterwards. Reggie's won state championships. You have Outlaw up at the Bloomfield. And, a lot of guys, but, I don't know. Where do you think there's probably room for a lot more? What do you think?
Just like Hill got hired going into last year. Yeah. And, that was the first time I had gone against another black head coach. I've been the head coach for 5 years. You know what I'm saying? So it was just like, wow, this is different. And I said that to him when we met at midfield. And now it's just kind of like, I texted him after the game. I said, wow, we did that. I sent him the screenshot of the tweet, and I said, yeah, we just did that. You know what I mean? And it was a huge game. I went against Coach Millage at Capital Prep earlier. That also had a black referee as well. You know what I'm saying? So, it's awesome to, be able to match wits against guys that you respect, regardless of race. I think, playing Ty in the state championship last year, I wouldn't have had it any other way. It was fantastic to, in 16, we went to Bloomfield and we beat Bloomfield. And they had, was it Russell Thompson Bishop?
Yeah.
And Dex, he was the quarterback. And for us, yeah. So for us to win that game was like, wow. And then to get another shot at playing them, you know what I mean? They don't take years off, right? No. They're always in the mix, right? So it's like when our season starts, we know you got to circle certain names because they're going to be in the mix. I think all the years we made it to the state finals, or we just got knocked out, it was Ansonia. We saw Ansonia some of those years. You know what I mean? Like my senior year, the year after we beat them in the semifinals, 08, we beat them in the championship. 16, they beat us in the semifinals. So it was like, they had been a cog in my side, right, for a long time. So it was just like, all right, like we'll see these guys for sure. We know we have to prepare now in August and September. If we're not preparing for them, there's no way you're going to beat them come December. You do not get ready for Ansonia in a week. Does not happen. Oh, right? Yeah. You have to be trying to beat them from September with all your actions.
Well, I know Tom does. Tom goes out to all those games. He saw plenty of your games. I know that. I've seen him at Pierson Park many times.
Yeah. I see him at Chicago Sam sometimes before when we would be in my early years, we'd be scouting. He'd be like, I'm heading over to Rocky Hill. What do you think? So I'm like, what you guys doing out here, man? We don't want to see you guys over here. Only when we need to. But yeah, Tom's a guy that, I used to in my early days, I would see him at a UConn game and I would ask him, like, how do you get those guys to play hard all the time? You win so much. How do you get them to play hard all the time? And, typical Ansonia answer. He's like, well, we didn't play good. We scored 9 times on 11 plays. I'm like,
that's Tom. That's Tom for you.
Right? So I just there's a lot of guys I have respect for out here, man. And, to be able to do this thing, the stress of just coming in every day and trying to get these guys with all the things they have going on, going in the same direction is enough. Whether you're winning or not, but those guys that win all the time, man, my hat goes off to them. Kind of learning, what that stress is about and what that stress is like.
Getting back to that, are there enough kids who, black kids who want to become coaches, or do we not hire enough in Connecticut? Are there? I know that there seems to be a little bit more of awareness now, especially with I guess they have the
coaches minority coaches.
Thank you, the association,
the Connecticut Minority Coaches.
You have Derek's Connecticut High School Black Coaches Association, which is out on Twitter. I didn't even think about you and Ty together last year. I didn't even dawn on me. So I don't know. I feel like an idiot. I should have noticed these things. But I feel like there's certainly a lot more. There's certainly a lot of room where we could have definitely a lot more, because most of the sport, especially in NFL, they're it's played by African Americans. So.
Right.
Connecticut's been pretty good, but I'm sure that. What do you think? Do you think there should be room for improvement, or?
I think me being visible now as a head coach here, it's kind of sparked some guys to think I could coach too. I see a lot of guys that I worked with in the past, whether it be the Belzos, who were Middletown guys, now they're coaching over at New Britain. Damian Rabis is a kid at St. Paul. He played at Springfield College. I went to a St. Paul game a couple weeks ago. He's coaching on the sideline. So it's I think the greater impact we have in coaching guys and helping guys out, it's going to make them fall into, doing some of those things that we're doing. Dario Highsmith was a guy that we had in our program early, my program training kids. Him, Isaiah Tompkins, and now Dario's a coach down in Atlanta, helping guys train and stuff like that. So it's cool to see that impact in those guys, whether they coach here or not, just getting out and giving back some of the things you learned, man. I would like to see, more African-American coaches, just because I know there's a lot of qualified guys out there, and just thinking about being one of, I can't remember, it might just be me and Hill, the only 2 African-American coaches at predominantly white schools. You know what I'm saying? So when you think about that, that's where it's we could be doing better.
Right.
I don't know if we necessarily need a Rooney rule, but
no.
You know what I mean? But we got to get guys that want to take those jobs. You know what I'm saying?
Do you see a lot of guys, Coach? Do you see a lot of guys out there trying for jobs? Or that needs to improve maybe? I don't know. Is there?
I think everybody kind of tries to coach either you're going to try to coach, at one of the bigger schools because you want to be in the winning and stuff like that, or you're kind of just going to be back at your old high school. I don't know too many guys that are just I'll go coach at for me, I wouldn't think to ever go and coach at Derby. You know what I mean? Somewhere far or something like that and have to commute all that distance. I don't know.
But one thing I always notice at your game is your son, and you and your son are really attached at the hip. It feels like, or it looks like. How nice is it? One, what is your son's name? Because we see him all the time. And then 2, how special is that to have him? He gets to hang out with the players. You hold him in post-game interviews, and he's always high-fiving everybody. How special is that for you to have him being a part of all these great things that you guys are doing?
It's awesome, man. I think early on, me playing so far away, you know what I mean? Playing down south, playing in Philadelphia, I never had the opportunity to have my family at every game. You know what I mean? So now, my wife is at the games. She brings Trey unless it's too cold, but I think now he's not going to sit home and not be at a game. He loves these guys in the summertime when he goes to daycare twice a week. Those other 3 days, he's with us in the weight room. You know what I mean? And he's doing the ladder after the guys finish doing the ladder. He's running up and down the ladder. He just does everything he sees. He's a sponge. He soaks it up. So it's just awesome to, just have him, you know what I mean? You walk in the house and daddy, and he comes running in. And, I brought him to the UConn BC game Saturday. And, he's sitting on the bleachers next to me, and all of a sudden the crowd cheers, and now he's learned to clap, when the crowd cheers. And it's just like, all right, you're picking it up, young fella, right? But, I mean, he's a fan favorite here. You know what I mean? Everybody loves him. He gets out of the car at practice, and he just comes running onto the field. I think he was right-handed, and he just watches Cole throw, and now he's lefty too. So,
That's funny.
I mean, so it's like, yeah, he's awesome, man. He just turned 2. He's 38 and a half inches.
Oh my God.
So it's like,
Wow.
Yeah, well,
give it
what
to me
do they
straight,
say?
Doc. What are we talking, 7 feet?
Yeah, what do they say? How big? Because your wife's tall too, right?
They won't give us the straight answers. Yeah, she's 5'10".
Right.
So, I mean, I'm hoping 6'9". I would like him to, be a hooper, right? I'm like, I got to do enough football. Let me spend my later years watching basketball a little bit or something like that. But
Well, I see you at every game, Coach. You're at St. Joe. You got them with you there, but because you designed a lot of your team last year on what St. Joe does. I mean, that's the thing I kind of take away from what you mentioned, Brockett. I mean, obviously Joe's been there. You have reverence for what he does at St. Joe, and now you're like kind of making your own. I mean, I know you got a long way to go, but you win another title here, and this is a tough Class AA division. Now you're going to be up there. People are going to be looking at you, going like, how do I be like that guy? So I don't know. It should be really interesting.
Yeah. My hat goes off to those guys because we don't really know each other, but that doesn't stop me from getting on Huddle and requesting St. Joe's Ansonia game a couple years ago, and he sends it right over. You know what I mean? I reach out to Fleet, and I asked him for the 2 St. Joe's games they had last year. You know what I mean? He sends it right over. You know what I mean? So just giving us the opportunity to learn, just to see how they're moving. Not so much, taking plays from these guys, but just to see how a good operation is working. You know what I mean? How these guys, don't hang their heads when something bad happens, right? Just trying to give those little tidbits of information to my guys so they know how to carry themselves out there. But, yeah, we have some good coaches here, man. And shout out to Coach Marinelli at UConn. He definitely helped us out in the winter. We went up there, and he helped us out with a couple plays and stuff like that. So, it's good to see, just this effort of getting Connecticut football to a better place. Starts at the top, starts with Coach Mora, and, you're seeing that trickle down. It seems like everybody's playing like, this hard-nosed brand of football this year. You know what I'm saying? And that's awesome.
We have all these quarterbacks doing great. We have a lot of great players at college level. I mean, we used to say, like, don't sleep on Connecticut, but, I don't think you need to say that anymore. I think we've proved ourselves plenty here. I say we.
Yeah, but it's not even at the D1 level. I mean, I've been paying attention. My fiance went to Western New England, so I keep an eye on their football team because there's a lot of Connecticut kids. And who do I see? Captain quarterback Bryce Carstetter. I'm like, I remember him, but like it's like even I teach at Southern now. I went to Southern. There's a lot of Southern, like a lot of Connecticut high school alums on that team, and I see them around campus, and like it's really great to see. It really is, and it's getting. I mean, it's great, like Sean said, but I feel like it's getting better every year.
Right. Yeah, we keep plugging away at it, keep doing things. I know we do the coaches clinic, and we gotta start getting these guys together more, just outside of that one weekend, and really start to build and learn things from each other. Because I locked myself away for a year, and I don't think I really talked to anybody. You know what I mean? And then I came out, and I was like, I got the best linebackers. You know what I mean? It's like guys didn't really know me. Like, who is this guy?
You got
know what I'm
cabin
saying?
fever.
So, yeah, COVID.
COVID fever. Yeah, not the real fever, but
yeah, it's getting better. And if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. So the fact that it's getting better, is really awesome.
Coach, we could go on all day. It's a pleasure having you on. I mean, you've obviously guys have been playing great. You won this title last year. We'll see if you guys could do it again, but so far so good. I know you got a long way to go, nice. But awesome job so far. I mean, got a model program right now. We have so much that we could talk about. We'll have to get you back on another day, but maybe after you win a title or something. But all right, well, we appreciate you coming on and giving us some time, and we got everything picked up. But thanks a lot, Coach. And we'll
Appreciate
see
it.
you the rest of the way.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
That was Randell Bennett. A little bit on the long side of our interviews, but we're getting longer and longer every week with Sags and him now. And, but it's just fascinating what he's done over there. And, we could have gone on forever.
Yeah, I mean, long interviews are usually good because we had a good time. We had a great time, and there's a lot to go over, with Coach Bennett and how the program has gotten to this point. So it was a very informative interview. I liked it.
Yeah, no, it was.
We were on it, so of course I liked it. But
hopefully you guys all stuck around for it, because we're going to rip through this. We're going to rip through the current state of the playoffs right now. And, if you follow me on Twitter, if you listen to the podcast a lot over the last few weeks, I cannot stand 6 divisions. I hate it. I think it's awful. Everybody's get in. If you look at the standings, I'm going to just say it right at the top. You look at the standings, most of these teams are in if they are we only have 3 games left, basically. If they are 2 or if they're 3 games away from you, then you're pretty much in. You are in for most of these, and it takes completely this next month out of the season. It completely just takes the fun or the excitement out of it. It's more like it's for seeding, and it's more like the NFL, which is we're not the NFL, but I don't know. It's just a mess. But anyway, so let's just start off the top. Here's Class L. Pete, Southington 7-0. I mean, at number with the 8th place being Richfield, 3 losses. Southington is going to be in at 7-0. They're tied actually in points with Greenwich at 6-1. So that means Greenwich is basically in too. I don't have the official on these. These are never official, but they're in. They're in. West Haven at 7-0. They're in. Hamden 7-0. They're in. Staples at 6-1. I'm looking at the rest of the schedule. Westfield, Richfield, Greenwich. They're in. Trumbull is basically 5-2. This is where it starts to get a little sketchy. Trumbull in the mix, 5-2. Fairfield Prep 4-3 with a big win over Shelton in the James McGrath game. Jeff Jacobs went out there and did an amazing column on just a great community spirit on the death of James McGrath, who died tragically last spring. In just an awful situation. Jeff did a great column on it. I can't even do it really justice. He was there, but the McGrath family in attendance, everyone wore blue. It looked like a very beautiful night there over at Shelton. But Fairfield Prep now coming on. Now they got a bunch of big wins. They beat Cheshire. They beat Shelton now. They got Notre Dame this week. And they got North Haven and West Haven. So by no means are they done. But at 7th place with Ridgefield, Glastonbury, and really, realistically, only those 2, maybe Danbury. If Danbury beats Greenwich, maybe. I think Prep is in a good spot. Trumbull's in a good spot too. I think it really is just going to come down to whether Glastonbury can keep up with everybody. If Ridgefield plays Trumbull, they're going to knock each other off. Staples knocks off Ridgefield, in Ridgefield play. It's going to be, it's a little odd there. I think Prep's in a fine spot. So that's double L. In Class L, St. Joseph 6-1, Maloney 7-0, Naugatuck 6-1, Newtown with their win over Barlow 6-1, got a lot of points. New Canaan, despite losing to St. Joseph 6-1, that's the 5th place team. They're all pretty much in. Darien 4-3, I still think has an inside track because they play Norwalk, they play McMahon, they're going to get points, and then they play New Canaan. Realistically, at least they're going to have. Let's just say New Canaan beats them. I think 6-4 is going to get Darien in. Really, so and it's only up to really Cheshire with Shelton, Xavier, and Southington left. That's going to be tough. And it's also up to whether Shelton can make a run in here. They're at number 9 right now. Cheshire, Notre Dame, West Haven, and Xavier. Ironically, the SEC plays this great Tier 1 schedule, but because of that, all the SEC Tier 1 schools are all kind of in dogfights here for playoff spots, where the rest of them are not. It's a little annoying, Pete.
Yeah, it's like you're punishing them. Like it's the system. One system for the SEC is completely different for the system for the state playoffs, and it just doesn't make any sense.
It's great, and I love it. It's great to see all these great teams play each other, but it can't be sustained like this. Some of these are good teams, and they're just knocking each other off. The SEC needs to relook at this. The other team in the Class L division might be Middletown at 10 with a shot. So, I think Ward in there at number 8 with a win over Danbury, but Ward still got to play Wilton, New Canaan, and Ludlow. Ward is the one I would worry the most about here. And then, Shelton, I think, would be fine slipping in there unless Middletown decides it wants to beat Wethersfield and Berlin to end the season. So that's where we are with Class L. Class double M is SMSA, Northwest United, which won. Pete, you were at that game. Bullard Colby, interesting, fun game. North Haven is number 3 right now, but they got Hand in a pretty big game there this weekend. And Prep, and then Amity. They usually beat Amity, and that Prep game is going to be huge, provided they beat Hand this week. They got to get past Hand, which is fighting for its own spot, maybe. We'll take a look at that quick. But Killingly, Thames River, Weathersfield, Massac, that might be your playoff field right there, with 1 spot or maybe 2 spots left if North Haven falls off the map. Guilford, which plays foreign this week, is getting a lot of points. Platt, which has a shot here, Ram, Bloomfield, Maloney. But, if it starts losing games there, it's going to be tough. And then maybe even Yale Smith and Cheney Tech, if those teams lose. Fitch, I think, won't be getting enough points. And then there's Windsor way down there at 13. All those teams are fighting for basically 1 or 2 spots. That's really tough. Class double M is, getting tight real quick. Class M is just a mess. Berlin, Notre Dame, West Haven at 5. And Notre Dame, West Haven at 5-2 is the number 2 team in this rankings right now. And it's just, if they lose the rest of their games, they're probably going to get in anyway and finish at 5-5. 3 is Law, ATI, Ram, Rockville, East Lyme. And that these teams, East Lyme, beginning here at 7. East Lyme, 3 losses. Hartford Public, 3 losses. Woodstock, 3 losses at 9. Then you have 3 and 4, Lyman Hall at number 10. If you're up here and you only have 2 losses, you're in great shape, which is basically most teams. Class double S is Wyndham, Cromwell, Portland, Foreign, Barlow. Valley Regional Lyme 5-1 is in a good spot. They got Creek, Old Saybrook, Stafford left, and they also have HK to end the year. Ledyard in kind of a tight spot. They got Wyndham this week, New London, and Fitch. That's going to be tough. They're at number 7. Gilbert, it's got a pretty easy road. They're at number 8. Then you have a bunch of other contenders below that. But those ones I mentioned up top, Wyndham, Cromwell, Portland, Foreign, Barlow, Granby, Canton, all in good spots. And even Valley Region, I think, is good. Again, this is going to be a kind of a mess for the 7 and 8 spots. And then finally, Class S, Ansonia, Holy Cross, Woodland. All those teams are playing each other. Woodland and Holy Cross are actually playing this week. Then you have Bloomfield, which I think is good enough to win all of its games. Even Windsor at the end there, they're going to be fine. New Fairfield has a few games left. We have Newtown left and Notre Dame Fairfield. But I think the Rebels should be okay. Seymour has got some toughies left. Ansonia, Woodland. It becomes a little bit more of a mess higher up here. But that's where we stand kind of right now. You have HK, Waterbury Career. It kind of falls off too, though. I don't know how many of these teams are going to be able to climb into that 8 spot. So that means even if a Bloomfield or a Woodland or a Seymour lost, or even New Fairfield lost, they're going to be fine because the teams below them, you're looking at Oxford is 3 and 4 at number 11. So there's your 6 division class playoff spots. Again, I hope everybody's happy. Everyone's in. Everything's great. And I don't know, Pete. It's just,
it's stupid. I mean, it's so lame to say, but the quarterfinals aren't even going to be worth going to.
Yeah, I was talking to some coaches this weekend. It's like the quarterfinals are going to be blowouts. I'm like, as opposed to the last setup, there were blowouts even before that. I'm just the end of the day, the scheduling needs to be smoothed out. The SEC teams can't all be knocking each other off. We need to fix some of that. The schedules are the most important thing. It's not adding playoff teams or adding playoffs. It's about fixing the schedule. If we can get something in that regard, we can go back to 4 and be fine. But anyway, so there we are. That's basically it. If you have 2 losses, you're in great shape. If you have 3 and maybe M, you're still in good shape. So
yeah.
Anyway, it's a little bit different, Pete. In the NEPSAC in the prep schools over in the NEPSAC, I got to see the biggest game of the year in the prep school world, which was Choate, Loomis coming in on an 8-game win streak dating back to last year's loss to Choate. They were the team that everyone was pumping up to be the best team in New England. If you remember, we talked about the Loomis Avon Old Farms games to start the year, and what can I say, Pete, except, I've been to too many of these games in the past, 6 years covering Choate and covering some of the next NEPSAC games in the Founders League now. Come to Choate, come to Wallingford, J.J. Maher Field. looking to push Choate around and saying that they're the best team, and they walk out, and so it's always Choate. Cheshire Academy in 2016, St. Thomas More, even though they did beat Choate that 1 year, but they took them 2 years to do it. But it always seems to be somebody coming in here that wants to knock Choate off, and it's always Choate that it wins. Shout out to Pearson Hill, the Hopkins transfer. He was at Hopkins, played great. He won a Metro Independent League championship for them there. But, he's kind of small at about 5'8". He's listed at 5'8". He might be even smaller than that, but the kid plays big. He stepped in for Ben Wable, the Cheshire running back who got hurt 2 weeks ago against Avon Old Farms. They needed a guy to run the ball. They thought they could do it even against a defensive line that was giving Avon all sorts of trouble. Well, Hill steps in, and he looked like Barry Sanders out there. I mean, he played bigger than he is, 5'8", and just slipping through tackles, knocking guys down, scored 2 touchdowns early before Loomis even knew what happened, and then they just turned it over to the Choate defense. Now, it got a little hairy at the end. Quarterback Dante Reno, the son of Yale coach Tony Reno and a South Carolina commit, finally gets Loomis Chaffee's offense in gear, but it started with a block punt by Nate Cobry, leading to a short Reno touchdown run. And then after Ben Wable busted loose on a long run down to the Loomis 14, Quincy Briggs made this amazing interception at the 5, and Reno led Loomis 95 yards the other way. And on 4th down and 2, threw a 12-yard touchdown pass to Chandler Coe to put Loomis ahead 15-14 with 1:27 left. The problem now was Loomis didn't help itself out. First, Coe gets a little too giddy on the touchdown. He mocks Choate's Harrison Keith by offering him the football and then gets flagged for unsportsmanlike conduct. And because Choate's return game is so dangerous, Loomis coach Adam Banks then had them pooch the kickoff. And all of a sudden, Choate's got the ball at the Loomis 42 with 1:17 left. And from there, it was a pitch-perfect 2-minute drill. Choate gets down to the 20-yard line where Jackson Carroll quickly hits Hill at the 15. Hill gets a nice block and then launches himself from the 4-yard line and drops the ball over the goal line. He's 5'8", but played more like he was 6'6" on this day. Choate goes nuts. They tack on a fumble return touchdown as time expires on just a great 26-15 victory, an amazing performance by L.J. Spinato's Wild Boars. They now have the inside track on the overall New England Championship Bowl game in 3 weeks. They got to beat Trinity Pauling, and they got to beat their rivals Deerfield in the 100th meeting of that game. So just a great effort by Choate. Here's Pearson Hill on his touchdown run, Captain Harrison Keith on the legacy, and of course, Coach Spinato on his team's effort.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was a lot of fun. It's a great team, coached well by a great group of guys that I'm very close with, so it was fun to do battle with those guys. And it was great to see our kids overcome some great odds, and it was tough to see us give up the late touchdown, but then even better to see our kids execute a nice little 2-minute drill right there. So
quarterback did a good job realizing the defense was in position, and then I saw Wable also at running back telling everyone to hurry up, and then me and Jackson just linked up. I didn't even run my full route. He threw it, stopped there, and then was able to make some more plays.
What's it like to weave through there? I mean, how do you do that? Is it all desire, or you're just like?
No, I just see angles. And when the angles presents itself, I take them.
When we found out he was coming here, we were so excited.
You knew about him though, right?
Oh yeah. We've been trying to get him here for a couple of years now. So we knew very well who he was. And then the minute he got on campus, he's an outstanding man. He's a great kid. Not just on the field, but off the field. He's a kid you want in your locker room, and we're so thankful that he's on the team. And obviously, you can see that at the end of this game, he helped us out a little bit. we love that stuff. We don't want to be the team that everyone talks about. We love being an underdog. We always talk about it. We play our best football when our backs are against the walls. And coming into this game, all the hype was for Loomis, same as last year. In the beginning of the year, it was Avon Loomis, biggest game in New England. We handled Avon, and then we came in here and we handled Loomis. We don't have all the big time, 4 stars, 5 stars, and all that stuff. We don't need it. We've got a great culture here.
We try to protect the house, but we were talking about them being the evil empire and everyone in the league, not wanting to see them go undefeated. And I love it. I love being, that our boys are always the underdogs. But our boys have consistently done a good job for a lot of years, so they're sticking to the tradition of being together, sacrificing for each other, and playing as hard as they can against big-time opponents.
With all that said, Pete, what do we got on the Petey Page Views Pickem podcast?
All right, well, right off the bat, like we always do, we're starting up in the CCC, and we got 1 versus 2, 7-0 Southington heading to Falcon Field with 7-0 Maloney Spartans. In the CTC, we have 5-2 Cheney Tech. The Beavers are going to Thames River to face the 6-0 Knights or Crusaders. Then in the ECC, Wyndham on the board again. They're 7-0. The Whippets are playing the Colonels, who are 6-1 from Ledyard. The FCIAC Ridgefield 4-3 coming off a win this week. They're going to Trumbull to play Hunter Agasti and the 5-2 Eagles. In the NVL, another great matchup with Holy Cross, 6-1. They're going to Woodland to face Woodland, who is also 6-1. Biggest test of the year for Woodland, though, for sure. In the Pequot, we got 0-7 Coventry going to play 0-6 Old Saybrook and Westbrook. In the SCC, 7-0 Foreign on the road to play Guilford 5-2. Remember, Guilford beat Law, who was also undefeated at the time. In the SWC, 4-3 New Milford going to Bunnell to play the 4-3 Bulldogs. Both teams still playing for playoff life, potential playoff life. Then we got Notre Dame West Haven 5-2. They're going to Prep. No one is as hot as the Jesuits are right now.
Yeah.
In the SCC, maybe even the state. And then the last game of the week, 5-2 Ward going to face Wilton, who's 5-3. This is a huge game for Ward to keep those playoff hopes alive. So those are the 10 games we have on the board this week.
Ward ever been to the playoffs? I don't think so.
Nope.
So good for them. They are the division set up for them. It's tough. I mean, they had a tough. We mentioned they got a tough road. You got to win some games here, and losing that game in McMahon 2 weeks ago was really hard. Now they got to beat Wilton. They got to beat New Canaan, and then Ludlow is the team. That game could go either way, but the big one is they got to beat New Canaan. If they're going to end up. They lose Wilton. I think it's pretty much over unless they lose the last two. And even then, I think Shelton's got a good shot too. So again, but it's it'll be interesting. But for the rest of it, everyone else can kind of take a break from Class L. But thanks a lot, Pete. That looks pretty good. We've been on here long enough. Thanks for sticking around. If you have this far, let's get out of here. For people, I'm Sean Patrick Moley. This has been the Meat Grinder on Game Time CP. Happy Halloween. Goodbye.
Love you all.